Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be diving into Stoicism, and specifically the teachings of Epictetus. I've been feeling a little scattered lately, like I'm chasing a million things, and most of them I can't control, so I'm really hoping to glean some practical wisdom from this guy.
Well, you picked the right philosopher for that. What's fascinating about Epictetus is that he walked the walk. I mean, he was born into slavery, went through some seriously tough times, but ultimately became this influential thinker. His own life was a testament to his philosophy, showing that even amidst hardship, you can find a path to inner peace.
That's so encouraging, especially when life feels chaotic like it does now. So how did he approach this idea of finding peace even when things are rough? What were his core teachings?
It all starts with his famous dichotomy of control. Epictetus believed that everything in life falls into one of two categories: things we can control and things we absolutely cannot. He was really specific about this, too.
Okay, so what falls under each category? I'm guessing things like I can't control the weather falls into that second one.
Exactly. We can't control external events, other people's opinions, wealth, fame, or even health beyond our basic efforts. Those are all outside our sphere of influence. What we can control, though, are our own thoughts, actions, opinions, and motivations.
That makes sense. But it's easier said than done, right? I mean, if my boss is being completely unreasonable, it's hard not to get upset, even if I know I can't control their behavior.
Absolutely. But Epictetus argued that it's precisely in those moments when we feel out of control that this principle becomes most powerful. See, he believed that true good and bad come from our choices, not from what happens to us.
So going back to my boss example, their behavior is an external factor, but my reaction to it, whether I choose to get angry or try to approach the situation calmly, that's where the true impact on my well-being lies.
You got it. And it's not about suppressing emotions. It's about recognizing that we have a choice in how we respond to them. We can let those external events dictate our happiness, or we can find a sense of peace and strength by focusing on what we can influence, which is our own inner world.
It's like having a superpower, the power to choose your response, regardless of what life throws your way.
That's a great way to put it. It's about reclaiming your agency. For example, one of the sources uses the example of health. We can make choices to influence our health. We can eat well and exercise, but ultimately we can't control aging or unforeseen illness.
So by focusing on making healthy choices, I'm doing what I can. And by accepting that I can't control everything about my health, I'm acknowledging the limits of my control. That takes some of the pressure off, doesn't it?
Exactly, and that same principle applies to so many areas of life. For example, the source also talks about wealth and how it falls into the category of things we ultimately can't control.
It's interesting because our society places so much emphasis on material possessions and outward success. This feels like a totally different perspective.
It is a countercultural idea. We can certainly work hard and strive for financial stability, but we can't control the stock market, economic downturns, or even things like theft. But what we can control, as the source points out, is how we use whatever wealth we have. It gives the example of a tyrant who uses their wealth to harm others, highlighting that wealth itself isn't good or bad. It's how it's used that determines its moral value.
That connects perfectly to the Stoic idea of virtue, doesn't it? It's not just about having wealth. It's about using it virtuously.
Exactly. And that brings us to another key aspect of Epictetus's teachings, which we'll delve into more deeply in just a moment. So we've talked about the dichotomy of control, that foundational principle of focusing on what we can influence. Now let's dive into how that connects to virtue, another core concept in Stoicism.
I'm ready to get virtuous. But seriously, what exactly did Epictetus mean by virtue? Was it just about being a good person?
It goes deeper than that. For Stoics, virtue isn't about appearances or blindly following rules. It's about aligning your actions with what is truly morally right, what's rational, and what's in accordance with nature.
So it's less about checking off a list of good deeds and more about an inner compass guiding your actions.
Exactly. It's about striving to be the best version of yourself, making choices that reflect wisdom and reason. It's about living in harmony with the natural order of things.
That makes me think about how Stoicism emphasizes acceptance. Is that where the idea of amor fati comes in, the whole love your fate thing?
You're spot on. Amor fati is all about embracing whatever life throws at you, good or bad. It's about recognizing that we can't control the outcome of every situation, but we can control our response to it.
It sounds like amor fati is where the real resilience comes in. Like even if something terrible happens, a Stoic would try to find meaning or a lesson within that experience, rather than just getting bitter or giving up.
Exactly. Remember, Stoicism isn't about being emotionless or passive. It's about choosing to respond to challenges with strength and wisdom, even when those challenges feel unfair or painful. It's about finding a way to love your fate, not in a naive way, but in a way that empowers you to grow and learn from everything life throws your way.
Okay, all of this sounds great in theory, but I have to admit I'm still a bit stuck on how to actually apply these ideas in my daily life. It's one thing to understand the concepts, but how do I actually live like a Stoic?
That's the million-dollar question, and luckily Epictetus offers some very practical advice. One of the sources we have emphasizes this simple question: what do I control in this situation?
Wow, that is a simple question, but I can already see how powerful it could be, like a quick reality check to bring me back to the present moment and what I can actually influence.
It is, because so often we waste energy stressing over things we can't change. This question forces us to pause, take a step back, and assess where our true power lies. It stops us from getting swept away by those external factors we can't control.
So instead of getting caught up in the chaos, I can redirect my energy toward making good choices within my own sphere of influence. It's like I'm clearing the mental clutter and focusing on what truly matters.
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility for our thoughts, actions, and reactions, and realizing that's where our true freedom lies. It's about focusing on what we can contribute to the world, rather than dwelling on what we can't.
The source also mentions some pretty awesome benefits of adopting a Stoic approach, like increased emotional stability, less stress and anxiety, and even more energy for meaningful things. Those are all things I could definitely use more of in my life.
Absolutely. And those benefits are a natural outcome of practicing Stoicism. When you stop letting external events control your emotional state, you find this incredible inner peace that's truly empowering, especially in a world that often feels so chaotic.
It's like having this inner anchor that helps you weather any storm. And when you're not constantly drained of worry and anxiety, you have more energy to focus on what truly matters to you, which is really what a fulfilling life is all about.
You're getting it. It's not just about thinking positive thoughts. It's about aligning your actions with virtue, taking responsibility for what you can control, and finding fulfillment through your own choices, not through external validation or material possessions.
So essentially, Stoicism is about more than just enduring hardship. It's about thriving in the face of it, finding meaning and purpose even when things are tough. It's a way to not just survive, but to truly live a good life no matter what circumstances you're dealt. It really feels like this philosophy has so much to offer, even centuries after Epictetus taught these principles. It's like this ancient wisdom that's still so relevant to our modern lives.
It truly is timeless, and the beauty of Stoicism is that it's a practice, not a destination. You don't have to become a perfect Stoic overnight. You can start small, with one simple step, and build from there.
So what's a good first step for someone who wants to incorporate these ideas into their life? Where do you even begin?
Well, the source suggests starting by simply bringing more awareness to those moments where you feel out of control, those moments where you get that rush of anxiety, that feeling of being overwhelmed by circumstances.
So like when you get an email about a problem you didn't anticipate, or you hit unexpected traffic on the way to a meeting. Those everyday little things that tend to throw me off.
Those are perfect examples, because in those moments, if you can pause and consciously ask yourself that key question, what do I control here? It can really shift your whole perspective.
Because chances are there's very little I can do to change the external situation itself. I can't magically make the traffic disappear, but I can control how I react to it.
Exactly. You can choose to get frustrated and stressed, which just adds to your suffering. Or you can take a deep breath, accept that this is just a part of life, and find a way to make the best of the situation. Maybe you listen to a podcast while you're stuck in traffic, or use that time to brainstorm some ideas.
It's about finding that sense of agency. Even when things feel out of your hands, instead of feeling like a victim of circumstance, you become the author of your own response.
Exactly. And that shift in focus from what you can't control to what you can is incredibly empowering. It allows you to move through life with more peace, resilience, and even a sense of humor.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive into Stoicism and the teachings of Epictetus. I feel like I've gained some really valuable insights and, more importantly, some practical tools that I can actually use in my daily life.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, this is just the beginning. The more you practice these principles, the more naturally they'll become a part of who you are and how you navigate the world.
So to wrap things up, I'd like to leave our listeners with a little challenge. Think of one area of your life where you're currently feeling a lack of control. It could be anything: work, relationships, health, finances, whatever feels particularly challenging right now.
And over the next week, I encourage you to consciously practice asking yourself, What can I control in this situation? Pay attention to how this simple shift in focus impacts your experience. You might be surprised at how much calmer, more empowered, and even more joyful you feel.
And who knows, you might even find yourself embracing fate, just like a true Stoic. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Stoicism. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.